Greetings and salutations. Today I'm going to make a quick review of Pine Creek. I won't go into too much detail because of the nature of the game. There is too many spoilers if I discuss many of the points I want to, but I hopefully can give a good impression of what this game is all about. Created by Carmelo Electronics, a small independent game studio located in Mexico, Pine Creek is a modern Game Boy game created using GB Studio. Teaming up with publishers Incube8 Games and Spacebot Interactive, they're hopefully soon going to have a physical copy of the game in classic Game Boy style with both a standard and a collector's edition. Now, you know me, I love old retro consoles getting new games, and Pine Creek isn't too bad, though it's a bit of a mix. Aimed at an adult audience, Pine Creek is a adventure game with a bit of horror, which focuses on sort of exploration and basic puzzles to investigate the disappearance of one of your friends in this small quiet town of Pine Creek. Now, it does take a little while to build the story and get going, but throughout the game there's various tones that just don't sit right with me. In particular, it's the humour. In many places it feels, well, out of place. It just doesn't feel right. It just undermines the horror tone, the suspense, and is overall just generally crude. I believe some of this is just due to translation, but the writing overall does feel very fanficky. The way the characters talk, the way the curse at one another, thrown in curse words here and there for no good reason. I think that this game could have easily been a 15 or even a younger age rating, but developer's choice, not mine. For me, it was okay, but it did take away a little bit from the overall game. I think finally a comparison's in order with Dedius, another game which I've played recently. That had a Lovecraftian sense of horror, which was this growing paranoia and dread, where Pine Creek feels more like a sitcom level of horror. A horrible event has occurred, yes, but it's more to drive the plot than to set the tone. Though, when you read the game's description, it feels like it's going to be a horror-focused game. I think the only other thing regarding the plot that got to me was the ending. It was not bad. I predicted one and a half of the twists that approach the end. I'm trying to avoid any spoilers here. But it just kind of left me a bit empty. The whole thing could have been resolved without the character being involved, which is never really a good thing from a storyteller's point of view. And in the last few rooms of events, there's a few things that I feel like the character should have responded to. You should have options to do something, and there was no way to interact. So, again, no spoilers. The conclusion to the mystery isn't bad, but the lack of foreshadowing or real clues for the player, and thus the audience, just didn't sit well with me. Focusing on a more positive note, however, and this is important for adventure games, the characters were engaging, and I did want to continue playing and discover everything. Even if I felt like the tone kind of flip-flopped, I still wanted to keep playing through the game. There was no point, like some of the other games I've played in the past, where I was like, well, this isn't worth my time, or I got frustrated with it. Now, with my main criticism out of the way, I want to draw your attention to the graphics and sound. Now, graphically, the game looks pretty solid. The NPCs are recognizable, which is very good with the limited amount of sprites that are available. It could have also worked in normal old green tone Game Boy, but the colour's a nice touch. And before I forget, there's plenty of places with rather intriguing bits of sprite work. Some of it looks like it's been taken from a photo and converted into a sprite. Other places, it looks like it's been hand-drawn as parodies of other games. And they're good for a laugh, even if occasionally they outstay their welcome. The sound effects are pretty decent, as is the music. Nothing that will be a bit of an earworm and stick in your head after you've stopped playing the game, but nothing that will also make you cringe. Now, I had a few moments where I was like, ooh, but I'm wearing headphones and I'm playing it through an emulator, which is a lot different than playing it from a Game Boy itself. My emulators are always going to have sound problems, so I think the levels and the volume are just perfect for coming out of a classic Game Boy. Last but not least is the gameplay. Pinecrete's gameplay is relatively simple. Most of the time you'll be moving from point A to point B, trying to talk to relevant people to either gain items or information. There's a handful of puzzle solving elements in the game via code breaking, nothing too challenging, all very, very simple, though that could just be me. I didn't really have an issue with it. And finally, some block pushing puzzles. Again, nothing really beyond, I would say, a 12-year-old. And the game's relatively okay paced, but it would have been nice to see a few more in-depth puzzles considering they're aiming this at an adult audience. Overall, it's enjoyable, but don't expect yourself to be challenged. And with that, I think I'm going to have to wrap this up. Again, I would have liked to have gone a bit more depth, but because of the nature of the game, just too many risk of spoilers. I will be doing a full playthrough in August, so please stay tuned for that. And if I had to put a number on it, I would say probably 7.5 out of 10. That may seem harsh, but the game lacks replayability. You can finish it in about 3 hours if you go quickly, 4 if you get a bit stuck here and there or want to explore everything. And as a result, I personally wouldn't buy the physical copy. If this is available on ROM, I would highly advise buying the ROM of it, but a physical copy for $59.99 or I believe the collector's edition, which is full of goodies, is $89.99. Bit too rich for my taste. I understand the price, but again, maybe with something like Dragonborn or Darius, which had a bit more replayability, I would go that high. But always, thank you for watching, and I will catch you next time.